Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Divya and today we're going to be diving into the world of aesthetics and subcultures. So we've all been there. You open TikTok to watch a few videos and before you know it, you're down a deep rabbit hole of everything. 1 minute you're on cottagecore TikTok, the next it's mob wife, office siren, clean girl, street style, light academia, dark academia, alt aesthetic, Y2K. It's a lot and I've just barely begun. Well, it's no secret that TikTok has totally changed the game when it comes to social media. And honestly, it's kind of changing the way we think about who we are, the way we connect to identities and aesthetics. And whatever I have seen on this app is unlike anything I've ever seen before. So today let's dive into the topic of our video, which is how TikTok is replacing subcultures, fostering identity fluidity, and maybe even creating a little bit of an identity crisis for all of us who are on TikTok. So before I get into the actual topic, let us learn a little bit about the generation that practically rules TikTok, and that is Gen Z. Generation Z, born between 1997 and 2012, stands out as the most tech-savvy generation, considering them being grown up in a world surrounded by constant technological advancements. In the United States, Gen Z is the most racially and ethnically diverse generation in history, reshaping the nation's demographic landscape, along with having no stigma discussing former taboo topics such as abortion rights, sexual identity, and more. With digital media and Wi-Fi at the center of their lives, Gen Z does not separate the digital from the physical world. Instead, they have seamlessly integrated technology into every aspect of their lives, earning them the title of digital integrators. Let's discuss subcultures. I want you to think back to the early internet days, Tumblr, MySpace, or maybe even the 90s youth culture. You had goths, nerds, hip-hop culture, punks, emo kids, and these groups were not just a look, they were a whole community with shared styles, values, and even music. And this gave people a sense of belonging. This form of self-expression just not only stems from personal identity but also one's surroundings and has been studied by many scholars. And this sort of collective identity is what we know as subcultures. Stuart, a renowned British scholar, sees subcultures as smaller groups within a mainstream culture that are both resistant to it and also influenced by it. These groups, they reject culture's role as a means of control and instead use it to empower themselves. Hall believes that this is especially important for marginalized groups who use culture as a way to challenge their lower social positions. A great example is the hip-hop culture which emerged in the early 1970s in the Bronx, New York, that was cultivated as a response to economic decline, social challenges, and urban migration. The communities faced significant hardships due to industrial decline, as well as the construction of the Cross-Bronx Expressway and white middle-class migration to suburbs, which led to segregation and worsened conditions in minority neighborhoods. Amid rising crime and poverty, young people sought alternative forms of expression and recreation in abandoned spaces. With few opportunities and rising poverty, they held block parties where DJs, MCs, breakdancing, and graffiti became key elements shaping the hip-hop culture. But when it comes to subcultures, TikTok's kind of switched it up. Instead of having big, cohesive subcultures that get popular on the platform, we now have what you call microcultures. And these tiny communities or aesthetics are niche and specific, and honestly, they don't last very long. For example, the e-girl/e-boy aesthetic, where the E stands for electronic, this aesthetic takes on an East Asian style with its East Asian-inspired makeup, anime-inspired outfits, and hair. This aesthetic got popular in 2020, and the main defining aspect of this aesthetic is that the influencers who got popular by emulating it did so by having an attractive digital persona. Unlike traditional influencers who get followers by showing off their glamorous real-life experiences like luxury vacations, e-girls and e-boys mostly stay in their rooms and build their image through their online presence. Being an e-girl isn't about what they wear or do in person, but rather how they present themselves online, on platforms such as Twitch or TikTok. But as of 2024, the popularity of this aesthetic has expired. or you could say declined. As I mentioned above, TikTok does not foster a massive subculture, and this is mostly due to the TikTok algorithm. TikTok aesthetics lack the sense of community that used to exist among subcultures. And yes, it is easy to find videos and content related to a specific trend through hashtags, but that still doesn't necessarily define a community. Yomi Adegoke goes into this topic in her Vogue article where she quotes, "If video killed the radio star, then it was the internet that killed subcultures." In fact, I'd highly recommend for you to read her article because she goes into the defining elements of subculture and how internet has created a whole new culture that it literally stems from subcultures. So what does this influx of aesthetics and identities do to our sense of self? Well, it's definitely creating this thing that I would term as identity fluidity, allowing people to explore their identity online by presenting themselves in different manners. And this sort of fluidity is more visible if you are an active TikTok user. You are watching people do the same thing and shifting right alongside them. As I mentioned earlier, TikTok doesn't define a community by placing ultimatums. You can like anime and video games and not be into the aesthetic of e-girls, and instead probably sport a Y2K aesthetic. This is also addressed in Adegoke's article where she quotes, "You don't have to be a punk to dye your hair acid green and shave the sides into a mohawk. Not too long ago, I sported pink dreadlocks, which once might have been mistaken as an ode to cybergoth, but was actually more to do with how long I'd spent scrolling Tumblr for hair inspo." But with all these new trends popping up, it can get really overwhelming. The more you scroll, the more it can feel like there's this unspoken pressure to keep up your identity. As I mentioned, the e-girl aesthetic got popularized by creators' online presence, which indicates that a consistent online presence is highly crucial to create an online identity. Goffman's theory of perception management helps us unpack the idea of ephemeral identity even more. Goffman argues that people create a front stage for themselves, curating an overly ideal image that aligns with how they want to be perceived and treated. On TikTok, we can see this in the way users adopt and switch between aesthetics, by choosing a specific look or vibe to represent themselves, often one that is trending, that end up shaping others' perceptions to gain attention and followers. At first, when these TikTok aesthetics emerged, it happened so as a way to stand out from the regular crowd. But what happens when almost everything is romanticized and popularized? It becomes difficult to have your own identity and stand out. And not to mention the impact these aesthetics and trends have on our environment. That topic deserves a whole other video by itself. So, what does this mean for us? It just means you do you and let TikTok do its thing. Follow what you like and leave behind what you don't. At the end of the day, TikTok just gives us a new way to perceive our identity, not as something that we are, but as something that we do. And we are not just discovering who we are performing it, we're editing it, and we're reimagining it every time we open the app. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'll leave that up to you to decide. Well, that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into my channel. All my sources and my socials are linked in the description below, just for your reference. And I will see you in my next video. Have a nice day.